Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob and I will be your host for this evening. If you're new here, every single Friday we experience one chapter from one of my original stories. Last week we started a brand new story called Astral. We read the first chapter, we experienced it. If you have not checked it out, I would definitely recommend checking out chapter 1 before we get into chapter 2 today. But if you did already listen to chapter 1, then here's a little bit of a reminder of what happened. So Astral follows young Callum, who's in his 20s, living in Nashville, Tennessee. He has this reoccurring dream that's happened every single night since he was like 8 years old. And the dream is when he falls asleep, he instantly is spawned having an outer body experience sitting in this wooden chair sitting across from his sleeping corpse. At first, when this first happens when he was younger, it scared him, but as he's gotten older, he's honestly getting tired of it. He's tired of watching himself every single night. He's even gotten into a little routine where he turns the television on just to have something to do. When he forgets to do that one night, though, he decides to do something he hasn't tried in quite a few years, and that is try to stand up to go get the remote. However, unlike other times when he's tried to do this, it actually worked. He stands up, and this unlocks a whole new realm, a whole new world for Callum that we will now experience tonight more of. So let's waste no more time. This is chapter 2 of my story, Astral.
The entire encounter was his dream self saving that woman from getting her purse stolen. Callum could feel the energy in the room as he felt a warm feeling. Not only did he take his dream self to the next level by moving, but he left his apartment. He couldn't believe that this was happening and questioned the reality of the situation. Callum debated with his dream self for a moment, but he had to know if it was true or not. He walked over to the TV and turned it on and turned it to full blast, waking his real self up once again. The real Callum jolted awake again and ran over to where the dream Callum dropped the remote and turned it off. He then proceeded to walk downstairs and out of his apartment complex. When he exited the building, the police were there with the man who had tried to rob the lady of her purse. It was at this moment that Callum knew it was real. His dream self had tackled that man and given the lady her purse back. This changed everything for Callum. If his dream state could do this, what else was he capable of doing? He was unable to sleep the rest of the night due to excitement. He started his day early, and his normal walk to work had more pep in his step. He was eager to learn about this new life that he would get to live. Callum coasted through work once again as always, but this time he had a smile on his face. He punched out at 5 o'clock on the dot and made his way to Copper Hearth Bistro. He ate his favorite meal. "You look happy today," Maggie, who had come over to speak with her most frequent customer, remarked. "Got a date or something tonight?" "You could say that," Callum replied with a grin before going back to finish his meal. After dinner, he took his normal walk around the city, soaking in the beautiful scenery that surrounded him. It was during this walk that he began planning his night. He could think of no better way to spend it than experiencing the nightlife while his physical form would be asleep in bed. Callum made it back to his home and started his nighttime routine. He knew the excitement would probably keep him awake, so he stopped by a local drugstore on his way home to buy melatonin. He took a few capsules as soon as he got back. By the time his routine was over, he was yawning constantly, ready to fall asleep standing up in the bathroom. He went to bed, and by the time his face hit the mattress, his dream self had already spawned in the imaginary chair that only existed in his dream. "Well, well," Dream Callum said to himself. "Where should we start?" He lifted himself from the chair and began walking around his apartment, touching random items, opening drawers, doing everything he could to realize that he was truly living a life through his dream. Then came the next test. Callum exited his apartment and started walking around the building. He called for the elevator and waited for it. When the elevator door dinged, it opened to reveal a man who appeared to be in his 30s. Callum gave him a head nod, the universal signal from one guy to another to say, "Sup." However, the man did not acknowledge him. Instead, he poked his head out of the elevator and looked in both directions before the door shut and the elevator began its descent. Callum stayed quiet on the way down until he heard a noise from the man standing next to him. It was a noise you didn't want to hear while trapped in an elevator. The man had passed gas, and the smell quickly suffused the confined space. "Really, dude?" Callum exclaimed. The man did not pay any attention to him. Callum was trapped in the gas chamber for what felt like an eternity before the door finally opened, allowing him to escape. "Asshole!" Callum shouted as the man walked in the other direction. He exited the building and quickly fell in awe of the view surrounding him. Nashville during the day was beautiful enough, but nighttime transformed it into a different world. The lights and sounds made him fall even more in love with the city. He took it all in and realized he could do whatever he wanted. He made his way down to Broadway, where he started people watching and taking everything in. It was surreal to him that he was doing all of this while in a deep sleep in his bed. He stopped into a bar he'd always wanted to visit, but it had always been too packed on weekend nights. Tonight, however, it was calm and relaxed. Callum debated getting something to eat, but thought twice about it. He wasn't sure if he could eat, or if he did, what would happen. He decided to just sit at the bar and enjoy the night. This turned out to be a smart choice, as he could see into the kitchen and notice the mess inside. Cockroaches and insects of all types filled the kitchen, while the cooks treated them as part of the staff. He felt sick thinking about people eating food prepared in such a filthy space. He decided he couldn't let this continue, no matter how successful the bar was. "Sir!" Callum called out to get the bartender's attention. The man was unresponsive. "Sir!" he yelled louder. The bartender didn't even flinch. Frustrated, Callum stood up and walked over to the bartender, getting right in his face. "Can I speak to a manager?" Callum demanded. Again, the bartender did nothing. As this unfolded, Callum saw a waitress walking out of the kitchen with a tray full of food. She took it to a table. Callum knew the food was likely contaminated, and he couldn't, in good conscience, let the patrons eat it. "Stop!" he screamed. Again, no one paid attention. "Don't eat that!" "This looks so delicious," one of the girls at the table said, taking out her phone to snap a picture for social media. Just then, the man sitting at the table grabbed his burger and inched it toward his mouth. Callum's instincts kicked in. He swatted the burger out of the man's hands and threw all the food on the table onto the floor. "Do not eat the food here," he shouted. "It's disgusting! You'll be paying more than the tab tonight if you eat here." The table's occupants were shocked. The man who was about to eat the burger stood up and walked toward Callum. But then something strange happened. The man walked right through him and leaned over to get the bartender's attention. "Sir, our food just fell onto the ground. Do you have a wobbly table or something?" the man asked. "Could we get another order?" "Sorry about that, sir," the bartender replied. "I'll get that right out to you." At that moment, Callum understood. He existed in a dream state, invisible to the waking world. He was real, but to everyone else, he was just a wisp of wind passing through. This explained so much: the lady with the purse and her reaction to a floating purse walking toward her, the guy in the elevator's obliviousness. Callum's actions in this state had no tangible consequences. He left the bar and started walking down the street, taking in the sights. He could do whatever he wanted and it wouldn't matter. His body was at home asleep. But Callum knew better. He had a strong conscience and no evil bones in his body. He was content with just existing in this dream state. Happiness washed over him as he realized he was no longer trapped in his room, staring at himself until his alarm went off. As the night wore on and the streets grew quieter, Callum found himself on a park bench near the AT&T building, often referred to as the Batman building. He gazed up at its illuminated spires, marveling at the architecture. While sitting there, he noticed a young man walking out front. The man looked no older than 20, with messy blonde hair and a pointy nose. Callum's attention was drawn to him, though he wasn't sure why. Then something strange happened. The young man looked around and locked eyes with Callum. This startled Callum, as no one had seemed aware of his presence until now. The young man's intense gaze made Callum think he could see him. Callum stood up and started walking toward him, taking slow steps at first. But as the young man's gaze intensified, Callum quickened his pace. Suddenly, the young man took off running. "Hey!" Callum shouted, now in a full sprint to catch up. The young man ran around the side of the building. Callum was only a few paces behind when he witnessed the impossible. The young man was flying. He soared at an alarming speed up the walls of the Batman building. Callum stopped in his tracks, stunned. Was this really happening? The young man kept ascending until he reached the top. Callum stopped right in his tracks to witness this. He couldn't tell if this was happening or not. The young man just kept flying up more and more until he reached the top of the building. Callum wasn't sure what to do or think of the situation. He was sure that the young man had seen him and acknowledged his existence. But how could this be? At this point, Callum had a theory. What if others had this same ability? Not only that, but if this was a dream, would he be able to fly or do anything he wanted as well? He wasted no time trying to jump off the ground and get to the top of the building to meet the young man. Callum bent down and then leaped up off the concrete. However, his normal jump would have gone up and then back down. But now, Callum appeared to not be going back down. He just kept climbing up and up more and more. He passed window after window of the building. The ledge of the top of the building was getting closer, and panic began to set in with Callum. He was so nervous to look down, but he knew he had to. He had to prove that he was actually flying. Facing his fears, Callum looked down to his feet, and sure enough, they were in midair with the ground hundreds of feet below. He was in awe of the situation, but was still nervous. He was unsure of how this was happening, but it was at that point that he could feel an unnerving amount of anxiety about the situation setting in. He didn't know how he was flying, but he also didn't know if he could take damage or worse, die. His arms began flailing as he approached the top of the building. He could feel his body starting to give up and noticed that he wasn't ascending as quickly as before. Callum reached out for the ledge and was able to grab on, but his body was now dangling at the top of the building. This was it. Callum was about to find out if dying in your dream truly meant dying in real life. He held on as long as he could, but could feel his hands starting to slip. As soon as his fingers were about to give up, he felt a pair of hands grab him by the wrist. He looked up, and it was the young man. He was now pulling Callum up onto the ledge, and when he rolled onto the hard floor of the roof of the building, he was finally safe. Gasping for air, Callum felt a sigh of relief enter his body. "Thanks," he said to the young man. "No problem," he replied. Callum was shocked to hear a reply from him. No one else could have heard him the entire night, and they couldn't see him either. But he could. Granted, no one else had flown up one of the biggest buildings in the United States as well. "You can use astral projection too?" asked the young man. Callum looked at him with questioning eyes. "What's that?" The young man looked shocked. "Wait, you can astral project, but you don't know what it is?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," Callum said, concerned. "You've just flown, though," the young man responded. "That's advanced level stuff. You've got to be kidding, right?" Callum had no clue what was happening. He sat in silence for a moment, just shaking his head at the night that was now being disrupted by the sunlight. He felt a surge of panic realizing his alarm was about to go off, but he needed to ask this guy so many questions. "I'm about to wake up. Can you meet me back here tomorrow night?" Callum asked. Tomorrow I'm supposed to be with the society, the young man answered, giving Callum little hope that he might figure out his feelings. But if you meet me here tomorrow around 9:30, I can talk to you before I have to leave. 9:30? I'll be here, Callum exclaimed as a buzzing noise began to play like it was on a loudspeaker being broadcast through the entire city of Nashville. Just then, Callum jolted awake in his bed and quickly turned off his alarm. He laid in bed for a few more minutes replaying the events in his head. What was this world he was now part of? How had he flown? Who was this young man? And what was this society he was talking about? So many questions filled his head. All he knew was he had better get ready for work before he was late. What Callum didn't know was this night would change his entire world, for better and worse. He had unlocked a new realm to the world that he had been living in for the past 2 decades. And what lies ahead was not all it was going to be, what it was cracked up to be.
That is going to do it for today. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, be sure to click that like button, hit that subscribe button. I make some sort of video every single day, 3 days a week. 3 days a week I post full-length videos. Every Monday I do an episode of Echoes of the Past, which is my paranormal location, history of paranormal location series. Every Wednesday we do Far From Fiction, which is my true crime series. And then, of course, Friday night, this is the Friday Night Campfire Stories, the namesake of the channel. I also post shorts every other day that I am not posting a full-length video. So yes, you definitely want to be a part of the Campfire. Go ahead and join today. I also had to send a big thank you because we actually hit a subscriber goal very randomly last week. It was very unexpected. If you've been around for a minute, then you would know. Earlier this year, I was sitting at about 30 subscribers when we started this year, and I wanted to get to 50 by the end of January, and we got to 49, so we got very close, but a couple days later we ended up getting 50, and then I wanted to get 100 within 2 months, and I think we got to 100 within a month. And then I said, okay, I want to make a big jump. I want to go from 100 to 500 by the end of May. And here we are. It was the first few days of April, and surprisingly, I was not expecting that at all. We actually hit 500 subscribers. So I want to thank every single person that's been here from the beginning, and everybody who is new to the Campfire. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope that you guys will enjoy and stick around. We have so much to offer here, and I can't wait to share more with you guys. If you are new here, I also did release a new book called A Perfect Journey Through Villainous Eyes. It includes the books Astral and many other tales. If you have any interest in that, please check it out. It's available on Amazon in both the paperback and e-reader edition. So you can do that right now if you wanted to. But that is going to do it for today. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, click that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.